Who would like to? Who would like to do microphones today? Oh, so many can. And gentleman at the back.
Oh, I was just waving at somebody.
Oh, no. Thank you, Holly. Okay. All right. Oh, we didn't clap, did we?
No, we didn't.
No. Do you want to?
But I can.
Yeah, I've just got to get them back.
I just have to grab those mics. Sorry about that. You just do it in front of the video, please.
Yeah, I've.
Yeah.
Okay. Just helps sync the audio.
Just helps sync the audio to the video.
It's not some weird.
Yes,
people. Yes, so yeah.
It's just a weird ritual.
On the ring, I don't know. Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Hi. It's been our pleasure to be with you guys this weekend. Truly, it's been lovely, and we've enjoyed ourselves, haven't we?
Yeah, we have.
Yeah, and you've been a really open audience, which is fun for us.
Yeah, probably the most open audience we've had so far, so that's it's not a competition. Sing straight away. Man, there we go.
Finding ourselves. Immediately it just darkens. Yeah. We thought today what we'd do is talk a bit in the morning about just some kind of logistical stuff about coming back next year and some stuff that's going on in Australia. And then we might hear from you guys about what you'd like to learn about the spirit world or spirits or any questions you have in that regard. So we'll do all that before lunch, and then after lunch we'll do something about all that mediumship and spirits, and we'll just see how it goes, see what spirits come along in response to your questions and that kind of thing. Sound all right? Yeah. So as you know, we're on this very long 4-month trip at the moment, and I think we've mentioned already that it's been quite a lot for us to do, just all the moving and all the travelling. So we're thinking next year we'll try to just have less stops, but one of our stops we would definitely like to be in Canada. So
competition again,
guys. But we'd like to hear from you a little bit about practicalities of that, and where it's easy to access and so on. We know that here it's possibly been a bit difficult for some of you to access, has it, to get right to this location? Have you had to, yes, no, not too bad, no? Yeah. How have you found being in this region? Yeah, we also like not being in a city centre, but we did have thoughts about.
The problem's going to be future size of venues.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, as you talk about things and we talk about things more, and people have the possibility of coming to Canada, obviously the venue sizes will need to be larger. And the problem with these country halls generally is that we're about at the limit of them. So that's going to be the main practical issue that we face, finding a venue that can maybe seat eventually 100 and then 150 or 200 over the next few years, and that's going to be the main issue as to where to find those venues.
Yeah, so we'll start researching from now. Yeah. But just out of interest, how many of you are actually from Nova Scotia?
Okay, so probably
only participate if you're coming back again.
1/3 maybe. Yeah, around 3.
18.
Yeah, close to the 3rd.
Yeah.
So most of you then, how many are from Canada altogether? Right, so the majority of you from Canada.
Maybe raise your hand if you're not from Canada. That would be easier to count.
Okay,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yep. Okay.
So that's 50.
Yeah.
There was 70, nearly 80 booked. We have people not come, obviously, even when they book.
I must say but this event is the least amount of no-shows as well.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah. I have a question.
Yeah.
If we can use
just
mics in this discussion, so Mary and I can listen to it again.
Okay. Would you consider presenting in 2 places in Canada?
It depends how hard it is to get to the second place. Because the main problem we're having is the more we move, the less time we have with people. So, and we basically lose 3 days every time we move. You have a day going, a day coming, and then a day to
sort of
shop
set up. And
right.
then there's pack up as well, depending on how much.
And then if we do a 3-day event and we've got to set up for the event, there's no time for us, Mary and I, at all to do any feeling or anything else.
That's kind of why I'm asking you about where it's convenient to access, because we want to make it good for you, but also good for us. So if we go to a place that's reasonably convenient for everybody, then we don't have to move and people can easily come to us. The
good thing about being near Halifax is that people from international people can get here relatively easy. It's on some routes, flying wise. And obviously the only other real options would then be, say, something like Toronto or Vancouver.
You're from central Canada, aren't you?
I am. I'm just a little bit north of Edmonton, and I have 40 acres. And I have perfect accommodations for it. And in Morinville, they have a building called the Cultural Center, where you have, it's a professional setting. So you could have 600 people, or you could have 200 people.
The issue is how hard it's to get to for everybody. How many people have to hire vehicles to get there, and so what we're trying to do when we assess the location, there's a number of things we assess about the location. The first thing we assess is the venue itself, whether it's got comfortable chairs, it allows us to plug in our own sound systems, and that it's not too much cost per seat for people to donate to. We're normally aiming between sort of the 10 to 20 local dollar range per seat per day, because we feel that's sort of like a reasonable thing we can cover with donations. The other things are, we also consider things like accessibility for everyone, not just for the locals. Because if we are accessible to everyone, see what we're considering next year potentially is that because this trip's been so difficult to go country, and every week presentations 3 days. What we're thinking next time is that we sort of have 2 countries only, or thereabouts, that we visit each time we do the round the world trip. So what we're considering at this stage is we do it around the world every year, and we travel for 3 months of the year rather than 4 months. But we only spend those 3 months in 2 locations, so 6 weeks in each location. And then the next year, we sort of choose 2 other main centres. So what we're thinking of at this stage is like next year, we're thinking like something like either Portugal or England and here. Now that would mean then that people in the US would need to get here easily. Because there's like nearly 200 or more people booked in the US this trip, and if many of them decide they want to come, then it needs to be easy for them to come. Does that make sense? And there might be, let's say of those 200, there's 240 or something, 30 booked in the US this time round. If they are missing out a year, many of them might decide, they might want to come up to Canada when we visit Canada, and then many of you guys might decide you want to go down to the US the following year when we visit the US. And so we've got to allow for the size of the venue to cope with the numbers of people that might rock up for those times. Does that make sense?
And also that's why we're thinking about somewhere with an airport, like Halifax, for example,
somewhere
has
more
an
central
international airport.
And the least amount of hire vehicles needed, and like all that, because that just adds to your costs. So just saving money for us is not the best
Love
option,
considers
because
everybody's
love
reason.
needs to consider
No.
your costs
Yeah.
in amongst to what's going on. So
Yeah.
so the more people who are travelling, the more difficult it becomes with things like hire cars, accommodation, and all those other things. So it has to be somewhere relatively central and relatively close to a location where people preferably don't have to hire vehicles and things like that.
Did most of the Canadians who are here drive, if you're not from right here? Yeah.
Did all of you drive?
Did anyone fly?
Did anyone fly? Canadians?
Canadians flew.
So quite a number of you flew, yeah.
So you would have flown into
So
Halifax.
particularly those of you coming from
Yeah, that's where you
Vancouver.
thought you'd fly.
Yeah, because that's a long drive, isn't it? So you would have flown. Yeah.
It's a road trip.
It's like a 10-day road trip, isn't it? So, So we understand that we need to make it relatively easy to fly in, fly out, and to be to a centre that you can fly in and fly out to. We really love Nova Scotia. To give you our thinking about Nova Scotia, we do feel that our first, one of our first overseas God's Way venues will be in Nova Scotia or New Brunswick. So at this stage, we have an interest in coming here too, because we've always felt that it would be one of our first places for a God's Way venue. And once we have a venue, of course, that's where we would go, to that venue. And that would also negate needing to hire,
As well, a
venues
venue and even equipment
and
and stuff. We
equipment
could
and all
sort of
this
have a
kind of thing.
base there that's set up.
And also, if we build the venue properly with just like a accommodation, a little kitchen, then we can actually stay there while we're there as well, and we can meet with people anytime.
Yeah.
And that's our sort of longer term goal. Now that's going to take quite a number of years to achieve, probably 10, in the sense of finding people who are going to look after that, who have the right spiritual condition is really the important thing. So that's sort of what we've been looking at, and we've been looking at this sort of latitude south of Halifax, right across through, so sort of middle of Nova Scotia, you could say south, right across to New Brunswick, the same sort of latitude. That's the kind of latitude we're looking for. So that's like the St. John's latitude in B, isn't it? And then a bit in the country, but not too far away from a major centre. The issue we have with New Brunswick, of course, is that it's much harder to get to it with flights and things like that. You've got
Especially internationally.
You've got to go international, and then you've got to get a little plane and go to the St. John's Airport, basically. And so that makes sort of New Brunswick, even though we're interested in that area, makes it harder to access. Whereas here is a lot easier to access because you've got Halifax as your main centre, and pretty much you can fly into Halifax. You guys mostly use Air Canada or something like that, do you? Or WestJet or something. Yeah, and WestJet has some European directs to Halifax, and it has some US directs to Halifax, and it also has some like the other side, domestic, doesn't it, directs to Halifax.
You can also fly into the States and like not too far and drive into Nova Scotia.
Into Nova
Yeah.
Scotia.
Cheaper for people in the States.
Yeah, maybe fly to, Philly's about a day's 12-hour drive, isn't it? What? Toronto's
Maine.
Maine.
Most
But I
north.
don't know if there's any major airports there that are on major routes either. So this is what we're trying to work
There's
out.
also the ferry that goes
From St. John to here.
Well, there's one that goes from the States, Maine,
To
to
here.
the lower portion of Nova Scotia.
So
Yeah.
people can drive.
So people can
Can
actually
drive.
drive here.
Yeah.
I drove up from Jersey. If I would have did it straight, it would have been about 14, 15 hours.
This isn't what you've actually lived with.
I drove up from Jersey, and if I did it straight, it would have been about 14, 15 hours. I broke it up though. 8 hours to Maine, Bangor, Maine, and then from Bangor, Maine, it was about 8 hours here.
Yeah,
Right.
and you took the ferry.
No,
No.
that was an option. It was honestly, it was about the same distance both ways.
So you drove up through Maine and then sort of the loop down through Windsor.
Yeah, like I went up and then
Yeah.
and then down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so The issue with these smaller towns is they're not going to have big enough venues if 300 people rock up. Does that make sense? And they're also not probably going to have accommodations that are easy to access for that number of people.
All right, we've got some hands. So, Ted, if you go to Sarah, and then we come to Kevin, and then we'll come to Leslie.
Is it a priority to have accommodations on site? So we would be looking more at like a conference center in a hotel, which would have...
It's very convenient when there's that number of people.
Yeah.
When people are coming from internationally, if they can stay where it is, they usually don't have to hire a car then.
Okay.
And the people who want to stay for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, they could still hire a B&B or something out of town and still get a hire car if they wanted to. And what we're thinking of is we run 2 bigger venues, like back to back, like so.
Sort of like.
So we arrive within a week or so. We run 2 back-to-backs, one weekend and the next weekend, something like that. So if people want to stay for 10 days and get the 2 back-to-backs, they can. And then after that...
And then in the week after or the weeks after,
we
might
do other smaller things.
More informal things. But this would be like probably a 2-day seminar, not a 3-day one.
Maybe 3, maybe 2, we're not sure yet.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And then a 2 to 3.
Another 2 to 3.
And how many kilometers in the distance to the airport would be helpful?
Well, if you could do airport transfers easy enough, then within whatever that is. Now, I know in Halifax your airport is pretty...
Quite far.
It's quite far from Halifax in a way, isn't it? You're going to need transfers anyway. And also, it's about within the range around Stansted, the airport, you've basically got 30 k's around it. You can almost get like B&Bs and there's all sorts of options, isn't there?
Yeah.
But for the people who wanted to like fly in and just have an event, having it even at the airport is not a bad thing. Do you know what I mean? If they just want to fly in, do the 3 days, fly home, then they don't have any other costs other than just meals and accommodation and just rocking up. So that's sometimes the ideal option for that kind of thing. If we were considering actually breaking up North America into still a US, because we've got to go home through the US. There's no connector home to Australia except through the US, so we have to go via the US. And mostly we have to go via the West Coast, so LA is our way out of basically here. So we can also stop there for a week and run a venue on the way home. Do you know what I mean? And so for those people who just want to go to a venue and just have a 3-day event, we can still do that. So if we did that, that would mean that the Canada thing doesn't have to be as big.
Yeah,
right.
I think
because most people would then go to the US.
Because this would be weeks 3 to 6 here.
Yeah.
So we'd have the 2 seminars week 1.
Yeah, and then spend a bit of time with you guys, visit you guys. You know, it's pretty. Everything here is pretty close together. So those of you who are already here, we can come and see you, have dinner with you, that kind of thing, and we can also do a little bit of a scout of our own for different locations we're thinking of for the future venues that we would like, and just and mostly it's not going to happen soon. It's because it takes time to find the people, but our hope is that it eventually will happen, and then we can, you know, that would become our centre that we'd visit we'd probably fly into Halifax still. And hopefully either in that latitude, you know, that south Nova Scotia sort of latitude, where the forests are, preferably somewhere around there, we would have a venue, and maybe anything up to 2,000 acre venue or something like that. Yeah.
Property, yeah.
Yeah.
Kevin?
Yeah, I was just going to add in Nova Scotia, there are a lot of either legions or community halls that seat, you know, close to 200 or 100 to 200 or something.
What's their chairs like though?
Well, no, this is what you'd have to plan for, right?
If you guys take off all your cushions
and
sit on that chair,
and that
it would be very uncomfortable to sit there for an hour, right?
Yeah, and I think I guess it would just be that if you plan for that and say, hey, we need to hire some chairs or something,
Well,
than
the
they're
problem
typical.
with hiring, this is what we've found in all of our, we've had
Yeah.
16 years experience with this, right?
Sure.
The problem we've found with hiring things like toilets and chairs, and there's a lot more things that go wrong.
And
And,
it's just
and
more
everything
logistics.
Mary and I organise, their spirit's trying to undo what we organise
Fair
all
enough.
the time. So if they're going to go wrong, they'll go wrong. You know, that's fundamentally how it works.
Yeah.
And so generally speaking, what happens when there's more than one venue to hire and there's other logistics to sort out, usually at the last minute things get cancelled on us and all sorts of things happen. And you know, then what do we do? Like, then everyone's sitting on the floor, and that's not good for
Sure.
18 hours either.
And the ideal thing for us would be to be able to hire the one venue for a 10-day period that takes in the 2 weekends.
Yeah. Sure.
Because then we don't have to pack up and do
Yeah.
all of that.
All
You know,
that.
it's just,
Yeah,
um,
that's an
that's
ideal,
often tricky
but
to
it
do
is
though.
relatively easy to pack up, so it's not too much of trouble to pack up. But you know, we're happy that I suppose what we're saying is for the 2-week period that we're formally teaching, what we want to do is have that so that it's relatively easy for us with moving around and other things and logisticals. And then after that, we can go for a little road trip. So if we want to go across to St. John and do something there, or we want to, you know, it's relatively easy to drive around if we've got a vehicle, and we can do little road trips here and there. And we've still got 4 more weeks, you know, in the stay. And then if we shoot over to home, and on the way we stop in San Diego for a week or something, we can run a seminar there, and then the people in the US don't miss out on that particular trip. Does that make sense? It's a very similar sort of approach we're thinking of having with Portugal, where if we do go to Portugal, we'll shoot to our into Portugal is via Heathrow in London, and so if we're in London, we might as well do an event there and then nick off to Portugal. Does that make sense? And then stay longer there.
Yeah.
So our general philosophy is going to be, we need some time. We don't mind doing a couple of back-to-backs where it's one place, move another place. But as soon as we do 3 or 4 or 5 of those in a row, it's very tiring. And not only very tiring, but logistically, if something goes wrong, like we miss a flight or something, everything falls apart. You're like, so like...
We were quite fortunate in a way that we had built in a bit of a break when we got to
this venue,
Canada.
because we might not have been here.
Yeah, because we had problems getting our equipment through the US customs, so we actually had to purchase a direct flight just on the day
on the
off.
last day, sort of.
Well, we had to stay another couple of days, didn't we?
Yeah,
But then
in Ireland.
we had to fly direct from Dublin to Halifax.
Yeah, we've met a couple of US customs officials which were not very pleased with us, and they just purposely made it difficult, and as a result things fall apart, you know. So, and if we had a booking that weekend, like, then we would have, all of you would have had all of your arrangements, and it would have all been cancelled. Yeah. So these are the kind of things we want to try to prevent, and if we're in a place for longer and we have a bit of a lead time before we start, then if things go wrong, we can fix that. Yeah.
All right, who else had their hand up? Yeah, Leslie
Leslie.
here, and then Chandler, and then we'll go to Jen.
I just wondered if you're thinking about earth changes at all and hurricanes in 10 years in Halifax. Things seem to, from an Ontario perspective, what I hear in the news, seems like there are a lot of big weather events. And September is more like hurricane season, but I'm just from Vermont, I don't know.
You get some big storms come through here, don't you? Yeah.
In October.
In October. Yeah.
Yeah.
Summer,
You had
not summer.
one just recently.
Not summer though. Summer generally not. Sometimes. Less often. Yeah. The main reason why we're trying to structure our visits for summer is that there's less cancellations of flights in summer. And if we get a cancellation of a flight and we're doing an event next week, man, it makes it difficult then to get to the place, and then everybody who's trying to get to that place also has problems. So for the most part, we're probably going to try to travel in the northern hemisphere summer when we come to the
Maybe
northern
even
hemisphere.
spring.
Sort of spring bleeding into summer. So we're thinking something around sort of like May would be in Europe, and May, June, and then July, August or something here. Yeah, that kind of thing. Or we do July and a bit of August in Europe, and then August, September here, something like that. Yeah. But we want to try to reduce it by a month for lots of practical reasons. But also we want to reduce the number of stops.
Yeah.
Because for again, lots of practical reasons. The more we can stay in one place, the more time we have to meet people. Yeah. When it's just short, we just rush in, present, rush out, don't really get to know anybody, and that's really not what we want to do the next few years. We want to get to know some of you and that kind of thing. Yeah.
You might not find it in your search on the internet, but because the airport is outside of the city, there's actually lots of very inexpensive shuttles into different hotels and things.
Right. Yeah.
Sort of that the hotels, like an airport transfer.
There is an airport transfer. I don't know that you actually have to stay in the hotel, but yeah, it'll take you from, usually to the airport to downtown.
No worries. Yeah, we were considering like places like Toronto, but that's not where we probably want to centre in the future. So, and we don't want to have a centre on the west coast of Canada either, for some practical reasons as well as for some, economic reasons. And also it's not the kind of thing, Mary and I want to set up venues where there is a sort of a lower socio-economic vibe and a more farming type of a vibe than like in a city or something like that.
So I really think you need to, while you're here, go travel to Wolfville. It's where Acadia University is, and because it is a university town, there are buses that come straight from the airport to the university to be able to drop students off.
Yeah.
And they have a local theater called the Atlantic Theater Festival. It has sort of an amphitheater seating, but it's like a miniature version with comfortable seats, bathrooms, that kind of thing. There's also hotels there, the Old Orchard Inn, that there's a lot of weddings.
Yeah.
And so again, they have, and you can actually stay in the summer when their students aren't there. They rent out the dorms for very cost-effective price. So Wolfville could be a really good option. It's rural, but it's town. Yeah. There's lots of farming.
It's on the bay, isn't it?
Yeah, and it has the
the issue we often face, and it would depend upon how religious everybody is.
Actually, Wolfville is probably the most
secular.
No. Really.
I don't know. I would say that Wolfville is not as much because it's kind of the melting pot area of the valley. There's so many, because their students, there's so many different. Yeah. I would say they're probably the most open.
In some places, though, you would think like Brussels is open, right? But we had 70 venues council.
Or just knock us back.
To knock us back because of who we are. Yeah.
I think once we're in an area and we rent something and people know us, you sort of know us, and
they know we're going to treat their venue well, and there's not going to be too much trouble.
There's not sort of.
It depends how much trouble the media stir up as well.
True. Yeah. So in Ireland, everyone was very friendly and at the venue, and
but the media stirred up some trouble.
Got in contact with them, and then they were very.
And then they got. Wouldn't have us. Wouldn't even talk to us.
Wouldn't talk to us. Yeah. They're people who rented us the venue. So during the event, which was awkward.
So these kind of things happen, and we've got to make sure that there's the least amount of risk for everybody. Because if all of you travel to a location and then the venue cancels on us because of whatever reason, they've had an interaction with the media that's claimed something false, and then they believe it, and then they cancel on us. And this venue in Ireland, they almost cancelled on us on the spot. So, you know, when that kind of stuff happens and everybody's travelled, then it's, you know, what do we do then? You know, like that, we've got to have sort of some options as well available in the location.
But we are actually thinking to do some driving around while we're here, look at different things. I had earmarked the Old Orchard Inn to look at while we're here, and also in Windsor,
yeah, so that was Wolfville, is it? Wolfville, yeah.
Are you from there, Jeff? Yeah. And you're from there, Lisa.
I was going to say, that's a good thing about small towns too, is that it would.
Everybody kind of knows everybody. So if you had a couple connections to the people in the town, even if one venue canceled, you probably know somebody's dad who owns another venue. And so
we also find the opposite also occurs.
It can be really good, or it can really go south.
Where everybody there just blanks it.
We've there is a town in England that has a town meeting and said that they would never have us back.
No way.
And nothing really raucous happened at the event.
Nothing at all.
Nothing. We just talked about spirits and spirit influence, and it got around the town that we were bad news. So, so it can work either way. And actually, for you guys living there, we
can
go home.
Just a warning.
But it's a good way to deal with emotions.
So sometimes we find, you know, a location can be quite offish with us, particularly when the media gets involved.
Okay, that town is known as quite a spiritual centre, so, but obviously they didn't want us to mess with
the spirits didn't want us to mess with anybody in the town.
Their spirit
so they made sure of it,
Over here.
What can we do to help all this situation? Pray or do something in
a lot of times it's about just being open about the fact that you're not in a cult, and that you know, Mary and I are really just public speakers, aren't we? Visiting a location, and that's really all we do. We don't interfere with your lives or anything else like that. And you know, of course, what we teach might interfere with your life, as you found out yesterday, right? But you know, obviously, you know, all we're doing is sharing truth, and then whoever comes can leave whenever they want, that kind of thing. So the main thing is to be frank and open with everybody when they make these kind of comments, and that can help dispel, you know, rumours that are false and things like that. And that being said, even where we live in Australia, everybody, you know,
well, it's a little bit, it's quite a rural community, probably not dissimilar to this one.
Highly religious.
Highly religious.
Yeah.
Initially, a lot of people just were so up in arms about us. I think over the years, people have realised we've done business with a lot of those people. Yeah. They've realised we pay our bills.
We've had a few businesses who are run by Christians who will not do
business with us. And some people who are still quite prejudiced against us. Yeah. But then other people are less inclined to be prejudiced.
All I do personally is I mention you, and then leave it at that. I say,
but also when people make comments that are, you know, to be false, it's always good to speak up. That's the key thing.
If that's in your, you know, like where you're present and something, an untruth's being spoken about anything, the right thing to do.
But the biggest positive thing is, as your lives change and you become more loving, obviously people will feel attracted to that. And then of course they will ask why, you know, what's happening, and then, you know, that usually improves the situation.
If you practice what we share, you become a happier person, you become a kinder person, you become a firmer person. Some people don't like that, but over time a lot of people come to see, oh wow, that person seems that they're doing better in their life, and that's probably the best way to dispel the myths, isn't it?
Yeah, we feel, you guys in Canada are very similar to us in Australia in the sense that even when there is some intolerance, it's not extreme. When you go to the US, sometimes the intolerance is extreme, and in Europe, some places, the intolerance is extreme. You know, we found England to be pretty tolerant, you know, for the most part, but we have been banned from a town in England, as Mary said. So, you know, it just depends on where you go and what.
And a couple of people knocked us back at venues.
Yeah, we've had some knockbacks. Again, due to religious, like there have been community halls that we try to hire. We tell them who we are up front, because if we don't...
It's always our policy, just be very open up front, because then if there's prejudice or if people want to... It's much better to do that rather than get halfway through an arrangement and then people get worried. That has happened to us, where they say they're fine and then they look us up on the internet and they see that terrible, you know, false news reporting about us, and then they get very worried and withdraw.
Or you know, as soon as they hear I'm claiming that I'm Jesus, that's it. For many, it's just like, no, that's it. And if there's like a religious person on the board or whatever, then you know they make a big song and dance about it generally, and then that's it. We don't have those venues available. So it's not as smooth sailing as you guys think when it comes to setting up things, as you can imagine. And it's in pretty much every country we've been to. We've had sometimes we've had whole audiences just walk out, like, so where you start with 100 people in the room and end up with 7, that kind of thing. So it's not it's not always smooth sailing, or a lot of times we find when one person has invited lots of other people, if that one person gets offended, then all the other people get offended. We had a situation in Portugal this trip where there was a bunch of Buddhist spirits who come along with one person, and they were quite offended with some things that happened during the week. We had a talk with them, and Mary and I tried to help the Buddhist spirits who were not progressing, but hooked into a lot of people on Earth, and half of them progressed and the other half didn't, but the other half got angry, and so they got very angry with the people on Earth about us and so forth, and so you end up with, it's funny because sometimes you end up with more people because of it, and sometimes you end up with less people because of it. It just depends upon the spirits and the people and their interactions generally as to what happens. So these are the kind of things we deal with regularly, and the key is to try to make it in such a way that it's arranged in such a way that it can go as smoothly as possible, basically, given all of these constraints is what we try to achieve.
But yes, you can pray, but also, I think the best thing is to practice the principles, God's principles, because that brings you to be a person who will speak up when untruth is being presented.
But not in an angry manner or a belligerent manner.
Not in a defensive manner, just in a,
that's not true.
That's what I was thinking of, being an example of something. That's the best that
it is,
I can do.
It is,
very best thing.
And we feel, for lots of different reasons, which we won't go into now, we do feel Canada has always been, it's always been on my radar. I visited here, what was it, probably 17 or 18 years ago, I think it was, and I've visited a couple of times. And I've always felt that generally people in Canada are more tolerant of things, and as a result, they're generally more open-minded than many. And that also means that when they do hear truth, they become quite enthusiastic about it as well. So I feel that's the advantage of coming here, and that's why it's one of the places we would like to get started first. There'll be other places around the world we'd like to have the same kind of thing as what we're set up in Australia now, but that's going to take longer time given the spiritual condition of different countries and what's going on in those countries.
Alrighty. Well, I think we've covered what we wanted to cover there, just to let you guys know what we're thinking.
So I think next time we might look at Wolfville, and if that sort of doesn't come off, then maybe we need to look at something closer to Halifax.
Yeah.
And what we've found sometimes is that people who make business arrangements and want to have business, generally they are more tolerant of what goes on if the media gets involved or whatever. But the people who make arrangements, you know, like more personal arrangements, if the media get involved, they get very challenged generally. And most people get frightened of the media. They're frightened of, you know, the media are generally bullies, and most people are quite frightened of them. And so we find venues who want to maintain a reputation are not always good to go to, because if the media gets involved, then the venue thinks that we're tarnishing their reputation by being there, and, you know, just it gets a bit tricky after that. You know, some venues, they're willing, they know that we won't legally sue them or anything like that, so they're perfectly happy to counsel on us even halfway through an event. So, Okay, so yeah, we might look at that, so we're still thinking probably Halifax rather than Toronto or some other place.
Yeah.
Will be because like I said, we're interested in the location in terms of the future as well. Yeah.
All right. Anything else on that before we move on to the next thing? No. Yep. Okay. We thought we just wanted to give you guys a little taste of what we're doing at home as well. I know some of you have probably watched the presentations already on this trip where we've talked a bit about it, so we won't go into it in depth. But we did want to mention God's Way Limited in Australia, which is an organisation that Jesus and I are founding members of. It's a not-for-profit organisation, and the part of the purpose of that organisation, making room for you here, is to give people, primarily at the moment, is to give people the opportunity to come and experience what it's like to be in an environment where everyone, from the managers to the workers and everyone in between, the kids, everyone, is in an environment where we're trying to uphold the principles that Jesus and I teach all the time. And a lot of people who come to visit find that to be a very beneficial experience, especially to be around so many other people who are trying to do that same thing at the same time. Because as you must find in your day-to-day life, there's not many people around you who really are interested in what you're interested in spiritually, and so it can feel sort of like, oh, what is it like to be humble in this environment, or what is truthful here? And obviously you can find those things out on your own in your relationship with God, but it's fun. It's fun to be all together and try to figure that out together. So yeah, Lisa, you want to try?
Also, I find with the kids too, there's this pushback of, well, no one else does this. Why are we doing this? Like, that's what I've found recently. Yeah. So that would be nice to see, I guess, if you're in an area where everybody's doing it. There's more of that examples.
Yeah. And also being around parents who are also trying to parent in harmony with God's laws. But in terms of the physical work that's happening there, no one is paid also, I should say, in that organisation. So everyone works as a volunteer, even the managers and everyone who's got a role within God's Way is a volunteer, including the board and the managers and everyone. And we've been very benefited by the donations of certain generous people, mainly in Australia, who have donated quite large properties of ex-farming land, which we are working to recover environmentally, using lots of different experimental methods, which is also fun. We get to experiment with what's God's laws in practice in terms of environmental regeneration. And we've benefited from quite a lot of heavy machinery as well that's been donated. So Jesus has designed a project called the Terrace Project, which is about creating terraces or flat areas on land that's been heavily eroded, very steep land, through cattle grazing, and sort of creating places where the water can gather. And we've been doing lots of experiments with seeding and various things in those terraces. And then
so maybe a few of the details would be good about that. So God's Way in Australia owns 1,000 acres of land. And at the moment, they're looking at selling 600 of those acres in order to build a venue. But so that would mean we're left with 400 acres. And the projects, the donations I've received, this is God's Way, not Mary and I, have probably totaled close to $2 million from different people in Australia. And that has enabled buying this land, and also there's been machinery donated. So 20-ton excavator, 20-ton dozer, tractor trailers, to a couple of vehicles, a van and a four-wheel drive. Mary and I donate to God's Way as well in Australia, and so it's like a fairly big operation in terms of. And it's all about recovery, at the moment, environmental recovery, as well as the focus on building our first venue.
Yeah, that's
a first venue, so that we don't have to hire venues.
Yeah, that's our big goal at the moment in the organisation, is to raise enough capital to be able to create a venue that we can hold regular events in the local area year round.
Yeah.
And when we're not there, that other people in God's Way can do presentations about spiritual matters or environmental matters, or even anyone in the local community who has an aim that's in harmony with love could use the venue as well. Yeah. So that's our desire.
Yeah. So I tell those details because in terms of if we do something in the future in Canada, you can see we're going to need a similar amount of land for all sorts of reasons, and a part of it is it's not like a community. It's not going to be a community living centre. It's a teaching centre, and we call them God's Way learning centres. So in other words, it's a centre for teaching like what Mary and I are teaching in practice. Where people can come and actually spend days or weeks there and actually put into practice the principles, and the managers are making sure those principles are adhered to. So that's the point of it. And it's also to create a centre where anybody in these locations can come there and know God's principles will be upheld here, right? So it's sort of it gives us the beginnings, I suppose you could say, of helping every person in the country initially, and then also on the continent that the centre is in, to have a place where they can go to and find out the truth about what Mary and I teach, and also how it looks in practice.
Yeah. And the reason it's not a community or a place for people to come and live is that, as you know, we believe very strongly in the principle of personal responsibility, that God requires each of us to be responsible for our own living arrangements, our own relationships, and all of those things. And many times people want to join a community because they want to avoid responsibility for some part of their life, and they want to go somewhere where responsibility will be shared with other people, or that they can escape the world because the world is not nice in their estimation. And we really believe that the future of God's truth on earth is that people are in communities and living God's way as an example, and that every person is equal in God's eyes, whether they believe what you believe or not, and worthy of love and respect and all of those things. So we're really not interested in creating a special separate place. We have the activity days, we call them humility and practice days in God's Way, and they're really just so that people can gain experience of what does this feel like, and how do I practice this practically in my life. So yeah. Kevin?
I don't know how to quite ask this, but you have a definite tone or not tone, but like you have your teaching, it's the teaching of divine truth that you are wanting to create in these God's Ways centers.
Yep.
But I've also heard you mention in the past that sometimes there's a challenge with, kind of other people taking it on, kind of getting into egos or other things that come up.
Yeah, this is why it takes a long time for us to find the right people to run the centre. Yeah. And we really can't run a centre unless we are certain of the people.
Yeah.
You've got to be really solid about, like the people who are currently running things back home for us. Some of you may have met them. It's Cornelius, who we've known for 2,000 years, and then of course there's two people who are in their first incarnation, Phoebe and Eloisa, and we've known both of them for quite a long time, like 10 to 12 years, maybe 15 for Eloisa, and we know and have been able to measure their dedication to grow God and to live their lives in harmony with God's way. And we've seen that in practice over and over and over again. And we know they've received God's love. When we say we know it, obviously it's easy for us to know when somebody has, but these are important things that we consider when it comes to who's going to run the centre. And the people have to be so dedicated that they're prepared to live life the same way Mary and I do, which means they live by donation too. They don't actually have any form of income other than what people donate to them to live as well. And so the God's Way organisation, it's a member-based non-profit, and that organisation does not need to provide wages to anybody. And so everybody is self-sufficient who is operating inside of the organisation to help the organisation. So as Mary pointed out, all the managers and directors don't earn a wage, which is unusual in most non-profits. Yeah. And that may not always be the case, but we think it probably will at this stage. And the beauty of that is that each of them then need to work through the same things Mary and I have had to work through to get to that stage. And also you start to see the sincerity of people and there's not a lot of glory in it, trust me, at the moment. When Mary and I are there's like 30 or 40 people come along to their days, but when Mary and I are not there's a lot of insincere people, and so when we're away, oftentimes there's only like the three of them and maybe 4 or 5 other people helping them.
Sure.
And they're doing...
At the moment they're building a huge water
collection
shed.
150,000 litre water collection shed. Just the three of them.
A couple of helpers
and still running the organisation, still paying its bills, still doing all the accounting and all the legals and still doing all of those things. It's a full-time thing for them. And we when we're travelling, we have regular meetings with them just to help them out with decisions and so forth. And it's a full-time thing. It's not like, and it's not for everybody, obviously. But that's the kind of people we need to run a centre, and we need to be absolutely certain of them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what we find with most people is that until they've had this regular contact with Mary and I over years and years and years, they really don't understand their sin very well, and they really don't understand how, angry and bitter things could be turned in a moment. They don't really get all of that, but these people have gone through all that, and they've been front and centre with media at times, and they've had to be, and things like that. So that they've had to go through a lot of tough experiences to get the skills and also develop the desire they have to run the centre.
A lot of people, when they first hear Divine Truth, it's like kind of like a personal development, self-help engagement for them. I'm in pain, I want my life to be better. Sort of.
So I'm searching for something.
I'm searching, and that's not invalid. But when somebody becomes really sincere and has received God's love, they understand. No, this is sort of my future. But
my
also,
everlasting future.
Yeah, Jesus and I could fall off the face of the earth, and those three would still be wanting God in their life and wanting God's way, even beyond the point that their pain is gone. that is something that they believe is worthy of their life, if you like. That and that the sharing of this is worthy of their time and their effort and energy. And so that's something that goes beyond just help me to I want to share the benefits of this with other people through my personal life, but also through my work and through my actions. So that's really what's required, isn't it, to be someone who's going to run a learning centre.
So any sort of ego or pride or arrogance,
selfishness,
equality.
Equality through the board.
Yeah. All right, thanks.
Okay. All right.
So maybe, just for the sake of what's happening in God's Way, maybe list the God's Way website. So that you can actually subscribe to God's Way in Australia. There's a blog that you can subscribe to. There's regular posts that happen every month. And they have pictures of all the projects that are going on. So if you are interested in being a part of something like that in the future, it's a great way to get educated about what's going to be needed, in terms of physical practicalities, but also in terms of spiritual development.
And there's some great information on the site already about different projects and different things that have been happening. One of the things that everybody who comes for the first time does is this weeding of this plant called Mother of Millions. And there's a great post on there actually about the principles involved in that and what it's like to participate and some pictures and stuff. So just little things like that to help you get a feel of it, of what it's like and what it's about. But we also want to mention those guys because they are sort of holding the fort down while we're away, and they're really putting God's principles into practice.
And one reason why you haven't seen much of us in terms of visiting for the last 5 or 6 years is because most of our time and effort's gone into getting that established. And now we feel quite comfortable with where it is, and we're quite comfortable with the skills of the people who are now involved in running it at a day-to-day level. Mary and I, that releases Mary and I to travel again. Does that make sense? So that's one reason why we're travelling again, is because for the last, since 2016, we've been trying to set up. It's taken 8 years to get that sort of established. And it's been hard work, like lots of work to do. And lots of structure to set up. And at the beginning, there was no properties owned or anything else, and generous people came along and donated those particular things. And this is what will happen in any country, we feel, if the motive is good. If everyone knows the motive is good, and the motive of the individuals involved is good, then of course people are happy to participate and share whatever they can, resources, time, money, and there's many people who come who don't have any money, but they help out with their time, and things like that. So, and this is the beautiful thing about it, is if something is done with sincerity and love, sooner or later groups of people will start recognising that. And you think of all the negative media attention Mary and I get, and yet these things are still happening. So that indicates, doesn't it, that there's groups of people who are not so outspoken with the media and everything, but who do believe the principles that we're teaching and want to help in some way or another.
Sure. The other things I thought just quickly to mention before we move on to your questions is how to stay up to date with what we are doing. So I think most of you would know, but I'm going to write it up here as well, for anyone watching the video as well, that we should say that our website is fairly out of date. Jesus has been the creator and updater of that website, and as he's just said, he's been extremely busy with other projects the last 8 years. So we've really reverted to using what used to be my blog as kind of the place to update everyone on everything. Kate, our dear friend who passed away last year, was working very hard with Jesus to create an updated website, and I've seen the initial stuff they did. It's beautiful, but unfortunately until another programmer comes along who wants to help with that, it's probably not going to be launched, is it?
Well, it depends on one of two things. One is having a programmer who I can work with personally who's living the same way we do, or buying some programmers in to do it. And buying the programmers in to do it, I estimate probably cost over 100,000 Australian dollars to finish off our project. It's an unusual project because we want about I don't know if you guys know, but we actually can make a copy onto a disc of everything we've ever done and give it to you, and the website and everything is included on it, and you can run it on your own PC without an internet link. And the reason why we want to continue that philosophy is in the future we see that there's a lot of poor people in the world, and they might have an old computer, right, some of them, or like a community computer that they often can use, but there's no way they're going to have internet or anything else to download or stream. They don't have any of these things. And at some point we want to reach these people, right? So having these websites that you can sort of offload and have them completely separate to the internet means that people can just have a disk that we send them, like a 5 or 10 terabyte disk that we send them with everything on there, and then they can play it in their local community, and they can have movie nights, and they can have, so that the truth just becomes more available to them is the idea.
And we should say on the upgraded website, there's a search function, because as you know, there's so much material. And what Kate and Jesus was working on is to be able to enter. There's a lot of work being done over many years on transcribing many of the talks. And so programmatically, they were creating a program where you could find the key words, because as you know, in some of those older talks, Jesus would talk about autism and the spirit world and so many different subjects within the one talk, and then you think, where did he say that thing about the thing? So what they were doing was creating a keyword search in the transcription so that you could enter a keyword and it would return to you the transcript and the video and the audio of every time that was mentioned with a timestamp, so you could literally go there and listen to it. So it was going to be a way to make all of what's already been presented very readily accessible in lots of different ways. So having an offline function of that would be very handy, because you don't actually have to have an internet connection then to search to find information. It's like having a database really offline.
Yeah, so that's our goal, and it's a very unusual goal, programming nowadays. Most people want to centralise everything back onto the net, and we're trying to decentralise everything away from it for lots of different reasons, practical and otherwise as well, but also because it's a great way of sharing truth with people who are poorer, who don't have fast links. And in the Western world, we're quite privileged, and most of us don't really understand how privileged until you actually go to one of the other countries that are not privileged, and you see the way in which people live. And at some point we want to be able to share with them truth as well, so that's why we want to do it the way we want to do it.
Yeah. But in the meantime, before that's all done, Mary.DivineTruth is where I put semi-regular updates. but certainly if we're going to travel again or something like that, it would always be announced there. Yeah. Also, there's a new link that Jesus has created for all events, which is event.divinetruth.com. And that's where you can find listings. We might change the booking system that we've used this year, but whatever system we use, it will be found at event.divinetruth.com, event.divinetruth.com, I should say.
Event.divinetruth.com.
Yeah, not that. Yes. Anything else you want to say about events, babe?
We're finding with our planning for events that we're having a lot of people not come. So they book a seat, and we then plan a venue big enough to hold everybody, and then we've had in some places a third of people not come.
Yeah.
So we don't want to stop people from booking, and we also don't want to have some kind of monetary system where they're penalised for booking and then not coming. We don't want to do any of that. But we would just like to remind all of you, and those of you listening to this presentation, that it's very unloving to book something and then take away the booking from another person and then not come. And quite often, even Mary sends out one week before, and 5 or 10 people counsel a week before. Now that should never happen, really, because they must have known before then they're not coming.
Some people book 24 hours. Cancel 24 hours before, and really you would know if you're not going to make it to Falls Lake, for example.
Yeah, way before then.
Way before then. Yeah. So there's a lack of regard for the planning and effort that goes into creating a venue and getting it all sorted, and then it's a lack of regard for the other people who might have taken your seat. Yeah. So if you book that late.
We also don't want to get into the place of getting a venue that's 1/3 smaller than we need. So if there's 90 people booked, we get a venue for 60. We don't want to do that either, because if 90 people do rock up, then 30 of them don't have a seat. So it's a bit tricky when you're doing free venues, because free events, because everybody thinks that because it's free, it doesn't matter. And in fact, it should matter more, actually, that it's free, that you want to help out, in terms of keep it free. And so when it comes to venues and that, Mary and I, obviously, for most of our venues on this trip, Mary and I, we pay for them directly ourselves, and we pay for them out of donations we receive. But in the case of this trip, quite a lot of the money has come from people in Australia to pay for the venues, actually, not from people where we've visited. And in fact, in some venues, we've had very poor donations when we've come to the place. And if it wasn't for the venue in Australia or 1 or 2 people, we'd be we'd have to go home before we come to Canada, that kind of, in terms of running out of funds. So we find generally that it all works out, but we'd just like to remind those of you who have booked events in the past and then don't cancel and have not come, that is a very unloving thing to do. Yeah. And we'd like you to do better with that. so that if you book something, you either come, and if you know you're not going to be coming and you can't plan it, then cancel the booking and we can give it to somebody else. Now, we're happy for additional people to come at the venue, particularly if there's the seats available. So, what happened in some venues is some people missed out coming because other people who were booked didn't rock up. They were free and we could let them know and they could get there in a bit of a rush, but it's not always possible to do that. So it's far better if what we're trying to do is make sure the venue accommodates everybody who's booked. That's
and some, really. Yeah, we like to do that.
Yeah. Now, there's a few venues in this trip where we haven't been able to do that because they've been at people's homes or people's private homes. And when it's run at people's private locations, we are to a degree constrained by the requirements of the person. And this is, we're happy to do that. We're happy to visit a private location where there's only room for 30 or whatever. And we're happy to have a chat with anybody in any location, right? We don't care how big or small the location is. But the problem with some of the smaller things is we found there's 2 going on next week and the week after, not next week, a fortnight's time and a week after in North Carolina. And the venue was 35 size for 35 people. And he's got 70 people booked in. And it's sort of now we need to start looking at other venues, but it's too late. Yeah. So sometimes what we have to do is plan sort of ahead a fair bit. So that means that a lot of people are on the waiting list and a lot of them won't be able to come. Yeah. And we don't want to get into that stage where people want to hear some truth, but they can't come. Yeah. So that's the other thing we're trying to sort out in this process.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay, good. I will just also mention donations because, as Jesus mentioned, it's through the donations of others and yourselves that we are here. And there's now a direct link if you do want to donate to us. you can go to donate.divinetruth.com. Now, there was a question about e-transfers. I guess in Canada you use e-transfers a lot.
We use Interact, don't you?
Interact, yeah. I'm just going to check my phone and see if, we did a test this morning to see if it works.
To see if something works, yeah.
You may not have the best internet connection
Here, yeah.
It is actually working, so.
No.
No, it won't.
It will do it to me.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So the problem is that Interact doesn't seem to allow donations to our business account, Divine Truth business account.
Yeah.
But it does allow donations to Mary's account.
Yes.
So
to do that, you would have to make it a personal donation. It still benefits both of us, obviously, but you would send it to mary@divinetruth.com, not donate@divinetruth.com.
For donation, it is.
Oh, yes. Usually, to use your e-transfers, you would have been entering donation@divinetruth.com. If you change that to mary@divinetruth.com, it will work.
Yeah. So we primarily receive donations via Wise, and Wise has been fantastic to us. We can talk to them, they sort out problems, they haven't been like any of the other places all around the world who have all these rigid rules. They're not suspicious of us right off the bat. And they've been very good with us the whole time. Now I don't know if that's going to continue, but we also have the ability to donate via a credit card too on the website. So you'll see that listed on that donate page.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Should you mind
Is that Mary at?
Yeah, this is the updates.
That's a blog, so that's a website.
That's a website, mary.divinetruth.com. But to donate using the e-transfer is going to be Mary at Divine Truth, which is an email address. So we don't do that so much in Australia where you attach an email address to a financial transfer with your bank, but obviously here that is what's common, and so you need to use mary@divinetruth.com. It's the email.
So we'll deal with your questions as you go. So let's.
This is
just a quick question about credit card. I noticed maybe a year ago or less, I could go on and donate via credit card really easily, and then a few months ago I couldn't do that anymore. Has that been updated?
We had a little problem with the credit card people where they blocked our credit card account because people were trying to filch money out of it. And so, but now I have changed it so that there is what's called where you've got to choose just click a button that says you're a person. But now that's been changed and it's all working again. Now, I don't know how long it's going to work for, but it's now working again. Makes sense? That's all right?
I'm wondering, the reason why we use e-transfer in Canada is because the fees are a lot lower, whereas like PayPal, Wise, they take a bit of the money. Is it preferable for us to send e-transfer to you?
Well, Wise is pretty good with fees, and we love them so much. We don't they take a very, very small portion of fees, but also how it affects us with Wise is that with most money that's donated, we also have to transfer it in Australian dollars before we can use it. And they actually have no fees associated with the actual conversion process that all the other banks have. And so sometimes we're losing hundreds of dollars in the conversion process that with Wise you wouldn't lose anything at all. So
this email address that you use is going to come to my Wise account.
Yeah.
So in Australia, to do a bank transfer from, say, your bank account to my bank account, I would go into we have what we call online banking, and I would enter, or say I'm transferring to you, I would go into my banking and enter your bank account. But in Canada, it seems like you just use an email address. Yeah. And so I've linked that is the email address associated with our Canadian Wise bank account. So it should be like
into Wise anyway.
It does come into Wise.
Yeah.
So
Do you have a preference? Because I could do both, e-transfer or Wise. Is there one that's preferable?
Not really. It's going to all go into the Wise account anyway.
You're talking about Wise direct to our Australian Wise. That's probably easier for your accounting.
Not really, because I've got to do transfers anyway.
Right, because this would come to personal and you have to declare it as business. So.
Yeah, what with pretty much all the stuff now going to Mary's account, I have to put into our business account anyway nowadays, because a lot of people get it all mixed up and it's all a bit of a mess actually, to be honest, and there's not much we can do about that. And so I have to work out the intention that you had was, see, if we know you personally, we can receive money as a gift. But if we don't know you personally, we can't receive money as a gift. So it has to be declared as income. And so in Australia, we declare what we receive as donations as income, except when it's a gift. That we also have a stat deck in Australia where you actually write a legal document saying it's a gift. And we, that's the only way we can receive a gift really now in Australia. So most of the time it goes in the end, it ends up in the business account and then we sort it out there.
So really the answer is whatever's easier for you.
Yeah. So we want to make it as easy as possible for you to donate, and we try to do the same in God's way as well, make it as easy as possible to you to donate. And so the donations, what is ever easy for you, and we bear the consequence of it on the receiving end, you know what I mean? The only exception of that is cheques. We can't receive cheques. Australian banks have now cancelled all cheque transfers, international cheque transfers, processing of all international cheque transfers. So there's no such thing as being able to process a cheque anymore. So that we can't do that anymore.
Yeah. If we go, Tim and Leslie.
You just said it was a gift. Now, I would much prefer it to be a gift. I don't want it to be income. So it's not clear to me how it becomes a gift.
Yeah, what we do, and I haven't got this on the website yet because normally people have just emailed me and said, well, I want to send you a gift. And we send them a document, which is called a statutory declaration that has to be notarised by a legal professional. So like in Australia, we have public notaries, for example, and you can get it going signed or whatever. I don't know what you have here.
Justice of the Peace.
Justice of the Peace, we call them. Probably someone in your bank might do it, I don't know. But it's a document that you'd have to email me, send to me, along with the transfer, and that way I can prove to the government that it's actually a gift from my friend Tim overseas, you know what I mean? Rather than it being something that's specifically for Divine Truth. For Divine Truth,
obviously there's different bank accounts. There's Divine Truth account.
Yeah, Divine Truth is a business.
It's a business in Australia.
Mind you, we just run off donations, like we don't, and you can see all the statements on that same donation page of how it's performing. We've lost quite significant funds over the last 6 years, but that's because Mary and I prop up Divine Truth with our personal funds anyway, and we keep it sort of running. So in terms of like what we do publicly worldwide, if it goes into Divine Truth, it's sometimes better because as income, because then all of our expenses can be claimed as expenses. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it makes sense. But you'd probably have enough income out anyways, wouldn't you? Or
no.
No, I don't mean.
No, there's a lot. I think there's a lot of presumption. On the average, about 0.1% of people who listen to Divine Truth donate to us. So if that's one in 1,000 people. Now, sometimes it goes up to 1 in 100, so about 1%. When we travel, for example, it normally goes up to even maybe 10%. But then when we don't travel for a while, it goes back down. So a lot of times we're sort of quite reliant on generous people who donate a lump sum, and then that sort of keeps us tided over a year or two, or 6 months, or something like that.
Yeah, I didn't mean you would have more income. I just felt to make a deduction, you just need enough income for
to cover the deduction. That's correct. And when we do these kind of trips, obviously we have a lot of outgoings. Like accommodation, travel, and all that stuff. And so a lot of times we prefer then, when we do a trip, that the income comes into the buying trip to pay for all those outgoings. If that doesn't happen, then anything that's gifted to Mary and I goes to Divine Truth anyway. And usually if we have excess, that goes to God's way. Does that make sense? If we find ourselves, we got enough. In this trip, Mary and I actually, we've been trying to, one thing Mary hasn't mentioned about God's way is it doesn't have an office yet. And so we've decided we're going to gift our house and our studio to God's way as an office. Right? But that means Mary and I then don't have a house to live in. And so we're going to have to build a house. Now, we've been saving up for about 14 years to build a house, but when it came to this trip, we needed some extra funds to pay for the equipment on the trip, which was nearly 50,000 Australian dollars, and that came out of our funds for the house. So it's just going to delay our house a bit longer, that's all. So we're hopeful in the end that we'll be able to, I don't know if many of you know, but we had these 2 tents that we had on our property that most of the time we lived in it year round. In Australia, you sort of live in a tent a year round and it'd be warm enough.
It was a nice tent, like it's got a floor. It's like a
it's a
like
sort
a
of
glamping tent.
Yeah, maybe a third or half the size, a third of the size of this room, maybe tent, like not a little one. But they got wrecked in some storms. 2 of them there were, and I built those way before I started teaching anybody. But and so they'd lasted a while, but now they're both being repaired and everything. But we haven't had enough funds to do that, so they're still in a state where they've just got a roof and haven't got any walls or anything yet. And so we're hoping that if we can get one of them done when we get back home, that's where Mary and I will live, and then we can give God's Way the house for the office. And so then God's Way has an office.
It makes a lot of good sense to give our house to God's Way because we built this massive studio next to our house. It's nearly bigger than our house, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The studio is probably, again, about half the size of this hall.
But it has all of our data storage as well as our recording equipment and everything in there sort of set up. So for God's Way, it makes sense that they can access all of those facilities easily, but it's literally right next to our house. And so if we've got people from God's Way coming and going all of the time, that's quite interruptive to our living and our processing. And our house is really quite small.
It's again about half the size of this house.
So it makes sense to turn that into office space so that there's sort of a hub where everyone can come and do their work, and that we're just somewhere else on the property so we can have our own space and just come and use the office as we need to as well. So that's our rationale behind that.
Yeah.
We're not terribly...
In the end, we want to gift our property to God's Way, and when we feel God's Way is ready for that, we'll be doing that. And because Mary and I, because we've been travelling so much, and our intention is just to keep travelling, in Australia but also overseas, we don't really need a single place of residence except for just a few months of the year or 3 months of the year. So we're thinking we will just have a place where we can go home to rest, and then off we go.
Okay. Michael, Leslie, quickly first, sorry.
There is something that the CIBC Bank in Canada, we have very few banks in Canada, so there may be people who are in that bank, has a global money transfer, which has no charge at all. And the information it wants is right on the Donate website, the banking information. So instead of using an email, you use the banking information per se, and there's no charge at all. Okay. If anybody wants to talk to me after about it, I'm happy to.
Let me just go to Mike.
Are you sharing the audio files? The audio files
Yes, I am. I haven't got them ready yet, Michael, because we've been week. I haven't had any time to edit, but I have been editing this week, as Mary knows, and I've just finished Belgium's, but I haven't uploaded them yet. But here at the home, we have a very fast internet connection for uploading, where last night I was getting like nearly 20 megabytes a second upload, which is very unusual for anywhere we've been in the world. And so this week I'm trying to madly get all of the audios up to now done and get them all uploaded. And you can download them from our sync server, which is called sync.divinetruth.com. And if you go / no, don't put any of that there yet. /WW, underneath that you'll see there's Ord High and Ord Low. It might be 2024 first, and then Ord High and Ord Low. So 2024 and then / Ord, and you can just click, once you go to there and you just click on WW, you'll see the next one down, and you just click on it like a website. There'll be Ord High. And our Ord High is used for people who have been doing the videos. They can actually download that, and it's an exact unedited, chopped up audio, just of the whole audio for the entire day for the event. And you'll see them listed per event. And if you want something to load onto your mobile phone or something like that, you go to Ord Low, and in there'll be MP3s that you can download and put them on your mobile phone, and they'll be a lot smaller, right? If you go Ord High, it's going to be very big files, like 2 gigabytes to 5 to 6 gigabytes each, and obviously you can't put that on your phone. But if you go to Ord Low, they'll be much smaller files, and they'll be MP3s, and you can download them onto your phone and play it on your phone or something like that. Does that make sense? Yep. So I'm hoping this week to have that fully sorted, but it just depends how much time I get this week. We are having meetings with people this week and other things going on. But I'm hoping before I leave Canada by the end, which is next Monday, that I'll have been able to get. There's actually about 26 or 28 files, 28 days of stuff I've got to get sorted. And it takes me around about an hour to sort each day, so a bit more than an hour. So it's going to require about 30 hours this week of my time to get that sorted. So, but if I don't get it sorted this week, then fundamentally it's not going to get sorted for the rest of the trip, because every single week from now on, we've got 4 day, and then a 3 day in and out, and there's not much time. Yeah, I might be able to get to it by San Diego and actually get the rest up. If I can get, what I'm aiming to is get as many up as I can now, and then whatever is going to be left over is going to be left over, probably to either San Diego or when we get home.
Okay, I'm going to leave that up and just flip the board, and then at lunchtime I'll turn it back, so if anyone wants to copy stuff down. All right. Okay, now we're just going to do 10 minutes of your we're not going to answer any, we just want to know what they are. About spirits, the spirit world, mediumship, yeah, anything in that thing. So hit us. All right. Why don't we just start with Jill, and we'll just work our way across. And next we'll come to Virginia next. Yeah.
I'm curious about spirit influence, how to recognize it.
Yep. Okay. Jay, I'm going to write, so if you indicate people, Virginia.
Yeah, next. We're just working well on. You were too? You were curious about spirit influence?
Interesting law of attraction. I was curious about, you mentioned something about sand decaying and moving into the spirit world, and I'm really curious about
matter and how it gets transferred in the spirit world.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not going to go into that. It's interesting, but it's not. It's not
significant for
it's
your
not
eternal
significant for
future.
your eternal future. There's a lot of things that happen in terms of decay of matter and how matter gets transformed into sort of like the spirit state used in the spirit world for matter. And suns are actually a great big engine for that to occur as well. So black holes are as well. So there's a lot of matter coming from the physical universe getting transferred into the spirit universe all the time. Yeah, and God's designed it that way so that the matter is all reused, you know, and yeah, supported for. You think if this is, I'm not, this is as far as I'm going. I'm just saying that it's an essential part of the universe growing. Yeah. And the universe needs to grow because there's more and more people going to be in it, right? Yeah.
Just loves God's truth on every subject. Oh my God.
I'm quite fascinated with all the technicals, and one day, in the future, once we cover the basics, which I feel we haven't done yet, we might, have a chat with some scientists about how things work and things like that, and maybe one day that'll get all recorded and you'll be able to listen to it. You might not understand much of it though.
Yeah, go Lisa, and then we'll go to you, Virginia.
Specifically on spirit influence, getting put to sleep.
Yeah. What's happening?
What's happening?
Getting shut down.
Being shut down. Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
Yep. Okay, Virginia.
Yeah. So.
I'm curious about how my sin affects spirits.
How
my sin
affects spirits. Yeah, good question.
Affects spirits?
Me?
Yeah, and you influencing them and them influencing you.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is part of the same question or a different question. How then is that affecting like people that are close to me, like my sons, my granddaughter?
Yeah, it's all related.
How am I affecting them or the spirits?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, okay.
We might start with that one actually.
Yeah.
Because it's on the subject of sin as well. Yeah. Yep. So let's come. Where's the mic now? Just if you hand it to each other as you go along here, and if we start, where are we?
Why don't we start at the back?
Start at the back and work our way forward. Yeah. So. Yep.
I have two questions.
Yep.
One is recently I experienced emotional processing and realized that it was actually some spirits that were really overpowering me, and it was a huge experience, and I'd like just more clarification on that and how to maybe discern or delineate
what's me,
because it was
what's my own feelings, what's theirs, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
My feelings versus spirits. Yep.
Yep.
And you had another one?
Yeah. Most of my interaction with spirits since I've been little is been more, I think, from natural love spirits where there's a transaction going on, and I have a really deep desire to communicate with my daughter in the spirit world.
Yeah.
An abortion, and I've been writing her story, and I feel really blocked. And
yeah.
I'm hoping that maybe you can qualify the qualities of what it's like to, speak with somebody in love, and
how to connect with the love.
Yeah, like how to connect,
or an aborted child.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So we're going to call that mediumship.
We might not get to all of these, right? But
no.
We'll see how we go. Yep. All right.
My question is similar.
Yep.
In a way, I'd like to know if there are spirits that are affecting myself or others in my life in a negative way, and how I might be able to communicate with them in a loving manner to help them. Like how to recognize it.
Yeah.
Like what is the chaos in my life or other people's lives that are being influenced by spirit, and then how I can connect with them to help them so that we help each other.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. So how can we summarise that?
We're going to say how to recognise spirit influence, how to help spirits who are influencing me.
Yep. Okay. If we go over.
This is probably very similar to Virginia's question, but how is my sin affecting my miscarried child?
Is your sin affecting your miscarried child?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yep. Yep. Okay. Never come here.
About sleep, so I'm not totally sure it's exactly spirit world, but
Yeah.
With regards to some situations I'm having at night and my daughter's having at night,
Yeah.
I think it's spirit influence, but
Sort
I'm
of
not
like
sure.
sleep state experiences that
Yes.
cause you to wake up or
Yes,
those kind of
exactly.
things.
Seeing things in the room when I rouse.
When you're sort
I
of
see,
just at the time of waking.
yeah, I see
Yeah.
a lot of people in the room, and I'm just not sure if it's my brain
Yeah.
as I'm waking or if it's actual spirits. And my daughter has a lot of. Anyway, if it's on topic, I'll
Yeah.
ask you more then. But
No worries.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. So come over here now. Yep.
And on that topic, maybe insomnia as well, like how insomnia might be affected by spirit
Yeah,
influence.
not wanting to go to sleep or being scared of going to sleep.
Not wanting to wake up.
Not wanting to wake up. Being scared of waking up.
Or being
Children wetting the bed.
Wetting the bed.
Oh.
That kind of thing.
Yep.
And then also for my question around guides, so how to connect to our guides, and also specifically, like, because I have heard you guys talk about how to connect to guides, but how to talk to guides, like what kind of relationship is that? Do I talk to them like a friend, but like sometimes I get confused about what that relationship actually looks like?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good question.
We have answered
It's
a lot
an
of these
easy question.
questions in our travels, by the way, already.
Yeah.
So some of them we might not answer because we've already answered them.
But very quickly, your guide knows you so well.
Yep.
You don't have to be all like formal with them. You know, they know you.
Yeah.
Just they're.
And they see everything you do, by the way.
wow, that's scary.
They know you fart. They know that They know all of your things that you maybe don't want anyone else
Warts and all,
to know.
right?
Yeah. And they want to be your friend. So yeah.
And they're not motivated to attack you or pull you down or denigrate you or condescend to you or any of those things either.
A divine love guide will never demand that you treat them as anything other than equal.
Yeah.
So if you have a spirit guide who you think is a divine love guide, who you feel like you've got a
highfalutin air about himself, then he's not a divine love guide.
No.
Yeah. Come over there. Sorry.
Who's next?
No, over here.
Oh,
This way.
sorry.
I'm going one and the other one.
You're in charge. Yep.
I'm curious about passing along information to other people as like about the spirit world. So informing people who have no knowledge or have no belief or no faith, maybe, and
so what's the polite way of doing that? Is that
and then I'm curious if that's not taken into their soul, like if they just hear it but they don't necessarily take that information to their soul, are they going to have that information when they do pass so that they know how to navigate when they get there, how to look for a lighter spirit?
Yeah. No, they're good questions. Yeah. Mary's got that. Let me just make sure.
Yeah, I'm good.
G'day. Who's next over here? Yep. So we just put the mic down and just pass it to the next person who has their hand up when you're done. Yep.
Similar to the spirit guide question, how do I know that I'm talking to my spirit guides?
Yeah. How about just generally? How do you know whether a spirit is a good one or a bad one, and guide, guardian, or whether just a family member, or whether they're a family member who is your guide, or whether it's family member who is your guardian, or a family member is just trying to mislead you and get you off the wrong track? How do you know any of these things? Right, is a good question, isn't it? So we'll probably wrap all of that up into that one discussion, yeah? So we're here.
I would like to know about the effect of having a guardian spirit that is that's more inclined to natural love than to divine love.
Yep. So next is up there. Where are we next? Yep. So through here somewhere.
And just on the subject of guides and guardians, how common or is it possible to have a guardian who is also your guide? Does that ever happen?
Yeah, very common.
Yeah.
Yeah, very common. And we can talk about that. Who's next over here? Yep.
Just like random thoughts that pop into your head. Yesterday I noticed.
Where they come from?
Yeah.
Did they come from my dirty mind, or did they come from
Right.
my place?
Like yesterday, it was like arrogant thoughts, and then just feelings of deep sadness, and then these sexual thoughts, and then feelings that just overwhelming feelings that you and Mary are actually who you say you are. It's like just one thing to the next.
Where they come from, that's good. Straight in front. And this side, we go back to Mandy's next, so just Mandy up there.
Telling the difference between like oppressive spirits around you versus like just your own negative emotions that are stuck.
Yeah, so similar question as different.
Yeah, sort of my feelings. Are they my feelings or spirit's feelings? Sort of thing.
We'll cover it.
Yep.
How to deal with generational issues in your life, feeling how they're also situational from generations being passed.
Like you find yourself living almost your mother's life or your grandmother's life, or why do these kind of things happen? Like what's going on there?
So how do we say that?
How do we say that?
That's about spirit influence, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like how a spirit's influencing the direction of my life, my decisions. Is that?
Well, and also being born with what they were born with.
Yes.
Healing that.
Yep. Is that? And you meaning like with spirits? So
with
us
the spirits.
So I'm going to say spirits and illness. And
relationships between spirit and illness in a person on earth.
Yeah.
So Michael's next. And
good.
Tim.
If you could talk about if there is a way to help our beloved that are in the spiritual realm, like father, mother, and grandfathers that have never listened to the
divine truth, never heard it.
Is there a way now that I can
talk to them about it?
Help them in the progression of love, of know that receive the love, God's love.
Yeah, it's very hard because it depends upon their condition to a degree, and we'll talk about that as well.
So how to help a loved one, sort of that also relates to your children and stuff as well.
And even whether you can. So sometimes that may not be possible, and we'll talk about why that might not be possible.
Okay. Yes.
Michael.
Can I use more information about the life review to make it more applicable to how I live my life now and my awareness?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you pass, how can I understand what's going to happen when I pass, and how can that help me now, sort of thing.
And you call it a life review, but actually we need to probably discuss a little bit about when it starts to happen, because for most spirits it doesn't happen immediately.
No.
It happens well into their spirit life.
I was wondering about that too. And will all the spirits that come to the earth plane to hang around with us, have they been through it? Can we refer to it?
Most of them have not. No. So almost every earthbound spirit has not yet begun their journey in the spirit world, and including the fact that they have not yet begun to even see their life on earth yet.
We talk to spirits and make an effort to connect them with their guides through an emotion.
Yeah.
And it seems very successful.
Yeah.
And this seems like another tool, awareness of the sins that have been in their life.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very important part of their progression, actually.
That's something that if you've watched us do mediumship, we often connect spirits with the sin of their life, don't we, to help them to progress.
Yeah, it's interesting, and this is something we'll talk about a little. It's interesting when you're a spirit, there's a strong tendency after you've been in the spirit world for a while to forget your life on earth, because you don't want to remember it, right? And this is how most people are on earth too. They don't want to remember the bad things they did, and they don't want to remember the things that were a bit confronting and things like that. So by the time you've passed as a spirit, you're already in that zone. I don't want to remember that, and I don't want to remember this, and I don't want to remember that. And the process, when a person from earth talks to them, they start remembering the things they don't want to remember. So that's very, very helpful. So we can talk about that.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm part of a group. I participate with other people in what something that feels like an experiment.
Yeah.
It's based on family constellation.
Yeah.
And we know it involves mediumship, and we try to be guided.
Yeah.
And it seems to release emotions in ourselves and also spirits that are involved with it. And there seems to be a wider positive influence than we're aware of.
Yeah,
and if you
I
had
think
any
we should
feelings
talk about it.
that.
Yeah, we should talk about it.
Yeah. Kevin? We already had you
Kevin, so really more around that communication, prayer, how you might connect with through intention or your dreams in communicating with spirit or guides for answers, things along that line?
Yeah.
Or insights?
I think there might be a bit of a misunderstanding there, though. They're generally, they're going to respond to your will a lot when it comes to you discovering you.
Okay.
And they're going to help you discover you, but only if you want to discover you.
Yeah.
And so I don't know whether I don't think we'll probably answer that question today, because that's more involved with what you need to do to discover you, and then what help or assistance you may receive from the spirit world doing that. It requires a very sincere desire on your part.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, first.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Jay, now?
Where are we up to? So Ed Nelly has no to go. So, sorry, yeah, up the back there where the mic is sitting.
I'd like to ask a question about how to help a friend that I feel has spirit influence causing gender confusion that could be
big thing nowadays, isn't it?
And just worried about if I have been afraid to bring up the idea that I do believe it's like a spirit influence. If it's loving to just maybe just pray for the spirit, or try to help the spirit without telling the person, or maybe that the person should just be told. Try to help them. I don't
very
know.
good question, and there's some loving ways to address it, of course.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. So we say, should we call it loving ways to address gender confusion?
Yeah, I called it gender issues.
Gender issues, gender confusion.
Yeah.
Could I? So now let's come down to Ed Nelly, because she hasn't had a go yet. Oh, sorry, it's already up the back. It's too dark. She's working our way back, and then we're going to have to work our way back to front.
For those people who've come from a Christian background,
yes,
and then started to listen to Divine Truth, and things make sense, and it feels like truth.
Yeah.
For years, I thought it was the Holy Spirit talking to me, and I don't know if you know the feeling of feeling called towards something in your life, and so I feel like I've been led to good things in my life.
Yeah, a lot of people think that's God.
Well, I do believe that's God, and maybe probably isn't by the look on your face. So here, thinking this relationship with God that I had.
No, the looks on my face. Go on, yeah.
Okay, so could we call it, what is God?
What is the Holy Spirit?
God,
what is the guide?
Holy Spirit,
Who's talking to me?
Yeah, yeah. Because it's fair to say that a lot of Christians believe the Holy Spirit talks to you, don't they?
Or calls you through your heart.
Yeah, they believe that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's false, but we can talk about that.
So we've got guides, guardian, God, Holy Spirit, other.
Which is which? Who's what? What's going on here? Yeah. What's the clarity behind it all? Yeah. Where's the mic now? I think if you can bring the mic down to here now, we'll pass it back down the front. But let's start with Ed Nelly on this side.
This fellow has a question, though.
Yeah, fire away.
So on the pyramid scale, and we're on the spiritual, very top, what sin would I create, or the main sin that would stop me from entering into that love of God?
Okay, so it's not really a spirit question, though.
Mary wants to focus today on spirit questions, spirit-related questions, not spiritual questions.
Yeah.
Okay. So she wants
but
to.
The short answer is all sins will prevent you from receiving the love of God, and ultimately
Sooner or later.
So you can receive love to a certain point, but if you want to hold on to other sins, you're not.
By the way, the reception of love and of God's love depends upon your sincerity in the moment.
Yeah.
It's not something. So sometimes you get really sincere in a moment.
But you could have lots of sin. Yeah.
And you have lots of sin, but you could be really sincere about something in the moment. And in that moment, if you long for God's love, you will receive it. But it requires sincerity in the moment, not your entire sincerity before you receive anything.
Yes. So
Fortunately, because otherwise we'd be stuffed, wouldn't we?
It's better to say that receiving God's love depends on sincerity.
Yeah.
The reason we talk about sin in relation to receiving God's love is because, as Jesus explained, sin impacts on your sincerity.
Yeah.
So anyone from any place, from the hells, anywhere, can be sincere and receive God's love.
Yeah.
But maintaining sincerity is going to be difficult because
while
you want to hold
sincerity,
on to sin,
very hard.
Yeah. So if you're just in the hells and you're continuously sincere, you're going to deal with a lot of sin really rapidly, and you could receive God's love through the whole process.
Yeah.
Cool. So over here, yes, Selena.
Yep. Selena.
How am I harming spirits that are attracted to me?
Okay.
Yep. So this is a lot about the spirit interactions, isn't it?
Yes.
Where were they?
Well, we had how to
Mary,
help spirits.
I'm confused with your board now.
Yeah, well, influence, spirit world, spirit relationships.
Oh, gotcha.
So,
yeah.
So how to help spirits who influence, how to harm, how do I harm spirits?
Because it is a codependence, isn't it? So obviously they're having an influence on you, but what kind of influence are you having on them?
Yeah.
That's an interesting question.
It's a good question.
Yeah. Because they're just people.
What am I helping them avoid?
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's very common.
Or feeding in them that is bad for them. Yeah, good question. Okay, so we're back over here. Nelly is again.
Upon passing, how is the fastest way to go to the spirit world, even if that place is the house?
Yeah, okay. Spirit world, life review, and then we go how to enter quickly.
There's a thing I can do. No, just joking.
How to enter humbly, can we call it that? Yeah.
But, honestly, it's something we need to discuss more about. Because there is this sort of illusion that what you decide with your mind is going to be what happens when you arrive. And that's not true. It's what your feelings are that are going to decide what happens at the time. And this is so there's a big illusion in many people that you can sort of learn more about the spirit world and learn more about how to ask the right questions and ask the right people and all those things, but actually none of that will probably happen.
Well, you won't be thinking of that at the time.
Yeah, because you'll just have your feelings, and those feelings that are dominant will be the things you act upon. So let's say you passed, but you're sort of in love with a guy on earth, right? And you pass. The feeling that will be dominant with the feelings of being in love with that guy on earth, so what are you going to do? You're going to forget everything else for a while, and you're just going to go, I can be with him all the time now. And bang, you'll be with him all the time. Right? And then he's having sex with somebody else, you're with him still, and then he's doing this, and you might be yelling at him, so don't do that, I'm here, and there's all sorts of things that might go on, but you'll be embroiled in that emotion at the time. And so a lot of people think that their thoughts would be able to be controlled in a much stronger way once they pass, but actually your thoughts are less controlled when you pass. Right, so, yeah. We will talk a bit about that.
We'll talk about
maybe is a good one. Please.
So I have a question about mediums, like in general, and often you hear that,
oh, this person's coming through and they're fine, and this person's coming through and they're fine, and they're telling you they're fine, and kind of what's going on there when you keep hearing, like, this happened last night when I went home, and someone had gone to a medium, and everyone's fine, and they're telling, so I just want to clarify how to be.
When somebody asks you how you are, what do you say?
Fine. But they almost
are you fine?
Say I'm fine, this is like, tell them I'm fine, tell them
because they want to stop the panic in the people on earth about life after death and everything else. They have motivations to tell everybody that they're fine. They're not fine. But it's the same with the person on earth. When somebody else comes on, are you okay? And you go, yeah, I'm okay, I think. I'm fine. I'll be right. And that's you skipping over all of your stuff and also trying to make them feel like they don't have to worry about you, isn't it? So that's what goes on mostly in the spirit world. People, you go along, ask the spirit how they are, and most of the time they'll say, I'm fine. There are some that won't, but it's only the people who are more honest than that won't.
And I wondered, are they actually tuning into the spirit, or are they actually reading them, like, are they tuning to their own gut?
Well, a lot of mediums have preferences to believe that there's nothing bad in the spirit world.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of reasons that they have that. One is that who's going to pay them if you go and go, actually, Grandma is in a bad way.
She's screaming in torture,
Yeah. So there's one.
And then what's the person on earth going, and they get into a panic about their passing and what's going to happen to me if I pass, and when the truth is not known, sometimes it's better. These people think it's better. I'm not saying it's better, but these people think it's better just to say it's just fine. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
then there are, if people can enter the spirit world. Say you're in the spirit world 50 years or something. You do learn a few things. You a lot of times you're in a better place than when you're on earth, but it doesn't mean you're in a good place. Yeah. It's just like, oh, I'm sorry, I realised I didn't do that very well, or now I see everything. I know that, or this is good for you, or that's not good for you. But it's still very much based on their condition. Yeah.
And one more attached to that: why they always think there's reincarnation. Like, it seems like every medium has this belief.
Not always, but no. It's more to do with the type of spirit who believes in reincarnation, and all of them are either earthbound or in the first or second sphere generally. And it's very rare for a sixth sphere to maintain its belief in reincarnation, but there are some.
Yeah.
But they've never reincarnated themselves and never observed anybody who has.
I mean, the mediums seem to be in this
for sure
right now, but not like in the early 1900s.
It's kind of
correct. It's a very modern trend. Yeah.
I would like to know when you go to God and when you go to your guides, because I tend to go to God for everything, and I've really been kind of, since I've been on this divine love path, neglecting my relationship with my guides. I'm a little bit afraid of it because of all the stuff that's happened to me with spirits. So, what is their function? When should we be going to God, and when? Because I go to God for everything, and
it's a good policy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but some people think they're going to God for everything, and they're not going to God at all.
Yeah, I get that, and I think that's happened with me. So maybe some clarification around that.
Sure.
Yeah. So that's sort
really
of in the realm of guides, guardian, God, Holy Spirit.
How do I tell?
Who is who? Yeah. Okay.
I might have a couple of questions, and maybe they're going to be answered. I was wondering about how to develop our own mediumship so that we can actually, you mentioned that you can feel the spirits and you can communicate with them and understand what they're looking for and asking, and if they're here. I'd love to be able to know that myself. Also, I'd love some more clarification about overcloaking, particularly in adults, not just children. I feel like that's also happening a lot, possibly with what we're seeing with, I don't know.
It happens a lot.
I'm asking.
It happens a lot.
And then the other thing, sorry, there's so many, is about how to
never apologize for having questions. Remember, children.
Questions.
Thank you. How to develop into my sleep state. to really get into my sleep state, into the spirit world in my sleep, but with intention.
And remember it.
And remember it, but also, like, if I want to help develop, I feel like there's opportunity there.
Yep.
Yeah, to understand that better.
Yep. There's also reasons why most people don't want it.
Yeah, and what might block us from that as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, we could keep going on with just with the questions all day and not answer any of them.
Thank you for questions.
So I think we can, what we probably need to do now, what is it now?
It's time, it's well and truly lunchtime.
Lunchtime. So why don't we have a break for lunch, and Mary and I will, if you can leave us alone during the break, Mary and I will sort out sort of priorities on the list of questions, and then we'll answer them after lunch.
This one here, how to develop mediumship, can I just say, we're not going to answer it today, but it's a passion of mine to develop a tool, because everyone is a medium. Everyone is a medium. And most of you are just channeling and
most of the time.
All the time anyway.
Yeah.
How to develop it in a loving way, in an ethical and moral way.
And in a conscious way.
A conscious, moral, ethical way is something that I really want to create some tools about. But we won't do that today because there's a lot
to do. Yeah.
And I feel really passionate about mediums on earth becoming really ethical in the way that they do it. And I feel that requires education. The medium needs to be developed enough in their own relationship with God, but also to be able to educate the person that they're doing mediumship for or with about God's principles.
The truth about
the truth. Yeah. So it's something I want to do, guys, but it's not going to happen
not
today.
today.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.